a can of Shasta Cola. Tiki orange mango, believe it or not. And everything is just as you would expect it to be in America, except the nutrition facts are all in. Ooh, glare. Kind of, you can see it's Japanese. Anyway, it says, Shasta orange and mango soda. They leave out the tiki orange mango. Tiki, frickin' tiki. Oh well, it's their loss. Some chap is trying to talk to deists, and he included me in that bin. And he mentioned in that video that I don't consider myself a deist. I don't really even know particularly what they think they are. They probably don't have any clue as to what they're saying, but whatever. But you did mention me by name, and so I would like to respond to your questions. Your first question: what is your concept of God? God is the creator of the natural world. What are the attributes, or what attributes does he have? The ability to create a natural world. Beyond that, I have no friggin' clue. What reasons are there for assigning him those attributes? Because nothing in the natural world begets energy from itself. It gets its energy from something else. So for energy to be present at all, or for motion to be present at all in a natural world, you need something outside the natural world to begin it, to begin that flow. Next question. What are the motivations behind being a deist? I've read these questions before, and you know, what can I say? What are the motivations behind being a deist? Do you really want to know? My real motivation for being, maybe not a deist, but whatever the hell I am, is to actually come on cam, present myself like a gentle-minded intellectual, and turn the youth of Christianity against the cross. What are my motivations? Oh, my motivations. I have no motivations. Thank you. Think about that question, please. What are my motivations? Do you think I'm scheming? Is this a scheme? A game? Is this a game to you? Is it a scheme? My motivations. What are your motivations for this move? It's like we're not playing chess. I just believe it because one experiences a certain set of logical observations and finds oneself calling oneself a theist. That's my motivation. Logic is my motivation. And corrupting the youth is my second one. Are your motivations just related to problems you have with the Bible, or do you have other motivations like the problem of evil or something along those lines? This is a little bit more telling in that it would seem that you believe those of us who are not Christian began as Christian and moved away from it. And that's not true in my case. I was brought up Catholic, but as soon as I was able to think for myself, I just became an atheist, rather. And then I decided to call myself a theist again more recently, but not a religious one. So for my own step, it was the ultimate default position, which is the atheist worldview. And and then I found God on my own without the Bible. But you mentioned the Bible, and you mentioned the problem of evil. And you think, it seems to be that you think people are not Christian but theist because they don't want to swallow the Bible and they don't want to try to wrestle with the problem of evil. And, you know, to be honest, I don't know what Christians do about the problem of evil. I've heard a couple of things. It just never makes any sense. There's just language games when I hear arguments, even from competent people who generally are competent. It's bizarre. The Bible, on the other hand, that's quite bizarre. I didn't like that book at all, really. The story of the Christ is fantastic. I like that. That's fine. But that's not a particularly Christian story. That story is in several cultures. You know, it's in the East as well as the West. It's Buddha. I was Buddhist for a long time, and the story of Buddha under the apple, not the apple tree, the Bodhi tree, is the same thing. It's doing what is right against all odds. It's actually the Christ story is the biggest anti-religious statement you can make, ironically, because it wasn't Christ and his priests. It was just Christ following his heart to find God, not the Bible. He was following his heart. It's the the kingdom of heaven within. And he did it. He did it. He did it. He continued. He continued. And the people that formed a sort of religion around him with his disciples, one of them betrayed him. And it's just a great story. But the Bible, well, the Bible is indifferent. But the practitioners of Christianity today believe the Bible is historic. It's bizarre. It's bizarre. Why do you think it's historic? There are no other historical accounts of Christ. There are shrouds and all that stuff and whatever. Sure, fine, whatever. But I don't know. Bloody sheets aren't all that convincing, and it's even less convincing when you see the same story reproduced in different cultures. It's the same thing. It's talking about a subconscious storytelling something or other. It's an artifact to the subconscious, much more than a historic event. But whatever. My other problem with the Bible is that there are just some very strange stories in there. That whole and people have made those arguments again and again, so I won't. But there are good stories in the Bible. But the good stories in the Bible, like the story of Christ, the story of Genesis, also, are not particularly Christian. They're not solely Christian. They're not exclusively, there's the word, exclusively Christian, in that the story of Genesis is a Pandora's box story. It's the meaning of it and the beauty of the story comes from man's refusal to live a guided life, that he wants to be in control of his own destiny. That's why he took the fruit. And just like in Genesis, the moment man took the fruit from the tree of knowledge, he was like God, the Bible says. It's a fantastic story. It's marvelous. And I know, if I could just convince Christians that it's not historic, I'd call myself a Christian. It's a mythological account of some very compelling human concepts and human things. It's free will. That's the story of Genesis. The story of Christ is the story of leading the virtuous life and doing what is right regardless of what happens. You hold your own self accountable to yourself. That's the Christ story. And it's repeated in many different cultures. It's recognized. And it should be. If the Christ story is right, I don't know. It should be recognized by other people, because the Christ story isn't about religion. It's about individuality and individual pursuits of God. And your last question, with the last few seconds that I have. What strength does deism have over theism? I think you mean to say, what strengths does deism have over Christianity? In which case, I'll leave it to the deists to say what they think. But what strengths does theism have over Christianity? Merely that we make less presuppositions. That's it.